I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, Israel stops for 2 minutes of silence for Holocaust Remembrance Day. ILTV gets the chance to meet some inspiring survivors of the Holocaust, and get your tissues ready after you hear why two sisters decided to immigrate to the Holy Land. Stay tuned for the latest news in Israel. The nation of Israel is marking Holocaust Remembrance Day in an annual tribute to the 6 million Jews who were murdered during the Second World War. This morning began with a 2-minute siren that rang out across the country at 10 o'clock and paralyzed all activity. Now, that was just 1 minute, but today it was a whole 2 minutes where we stood outside and everything stopped here. It's so powerful to be part of this. Observance actually began last night at a state memorial ceremony in Jerusalem's Yad Vashem Holocaust Museum with an address from the Israeli Prime Minister.
ואשר לאדישות העולם, האם בתחום זה נשתנה משהו? גם כאן חייבים להודות שהתשובה בעיקרה שלילית. האנטישמיות החדשה-ישנה רווחת אצל חוגים במערב והיא גם רווחת במוסדות האו"ם. הצביעות זועקת לשמיים.
Up until this very moment, in every corner of the country, Israelis are still gathering to share the Holocaust stories of their families. Last night, we had the chance to meet a very special woman who immigrated to the Jewish state at 86 years old. This is Sarah Rapaport. She survived the Holocaust in Poland. Today, at 92 years old, she's sharing her story.
It's not capabilities, it's lack many times, again and again. It's not enough when you are lucky once or twice. Again and again, a chain of being lucky. I was in my hometown, Ostrowiec, in Poland, until 1942, when there was the big selection. And from 15,000 Jews that lived in our city, 2,000 survived, and 13,000 were transported to Treblinka. After 1942, we went to a smaller ghetto. The ghetto was smaller. Were again a few hundred people eliminated. And August 1944, we were transported to Auschwitz. In Auschwitz, on the Rampa, they selected men and women. There was no Mengele that went to the sauna. We have heard at home that they take you to the sauna and instead of water that coming out of the showers comes out gas, and the people are gas then burn. We came to the sauna, and they came out of water. I was surprised. How come water comes out? I say because even when I was in Auschwitz, I didn't know what's what.
Sarah was later taken to a working camp in Germany, where she says she was finally liberated on May 10th of 1945 after the Allied forces invaded the country.
It took me 2 weeks to get from Germany to Poland, and I met my father there, and then my mother came also, my 2 sisters came. I still have a sister in New Jersey.
All of Sarah's immediate family had somehow survived the war, a true miracle.
I was 14 years old when I was thrown out of school because Hitler came to Poland. I mean, I came to Israel 6 years ago. There is nothing better than your own country.
Sarah Rapaport is just one incredible woman who has survived to tell her tale.
I said those who didn't experience the exile don't know the meaning of independence, the value of independence.
Today, about 158,000 Holocaust survivors live in Israel, but at an average age of 85, nearly 1,000 are passing away each month. With the race against time, over 500 young people squeezed into a local Tel Aviv synagogue this week to hear the stories of some of these survivors firsthand before it's too late.
My name is Yehuda Bachmat. I was born in Latvia in a little town 3 kilometers away from the Russian border. The Germans attacked Russia, and we had to flee to the Soviet Union. We suffered hunger, and cold, and lice.
I mentioned to a friend as we were listening tonight that our children aren't going to have the same ability to have people standing in front of them and speaking. So I try and take advantage of every opportunity that I can to hear survivors.
Every year on Holocaust Remembrance Day, the Adopt a Savta organization partners with the Israel Forever Foundation and Nefesh B'Nefesh to hold the only event with Holocaust survivor testimonies in English. But survivors aren't the only ones sharing their stories.
Tomorrow is my 4th son's 2nd birthday. He was born 2 years ago on Yom HaShoah. And an hour after he was born, my father went to visit my grandmother. And as I told you, she hasn't been well for a few years now. She has dementia and Alzheimer's. And my father describes it as if my grandmother opened her eyes and all the clouds cleared around whatever she has, and she said revenge.
Holocaust Remembrance Day isn't only about remembering the past. For survivor Yehuda Mahmad, it's very much about the future.
Youth should be educated to learn the history of our people in order to discover themselves how important it is for us to have a state of our own.
What is your first memory of Israel?
The flag, the Israeli flag and the Israeli soldier.
Every year, thousands of youth and people from around the world travel to Poland to take place in the March of the Living, where they march down a 3-kilometer path leading from the Auschwitz to Birkenau concentration camps as a tribute to all of the victims of the Holocaust. Joining us now all the way from Poland is reporter Yoni Kepinski from Arutz Sheva. Yoni, tell us, are the emotions different this year than in the past, given the rising anti-Semitism that we see that's taking place across the world right now?
Shalom, Natasha. So actually, the rise of anti-Semitism is something that is being talked about here a lot, and especially through the fact that there are many education ministers that are coming here today. The reason that it is important to bring so many education ministers here today is because of the rise of anti-Semitism. Because the only way to fight anti-Semitism, as he says, is to tell the story of the Holocaust. It's not just telling about the numbers, it's feeling it from up close, understanding what happened here, understanding how words of anti-Semitic words, anti-Semitic statements can become actions, can become the atrocities of the Holocaust.
Now, just last year, the Polish government passed a bill that forbids claiming Poles collaborated during the Holocaust. What has the Polish response been to this year's March of the Living, and have you met any Polish participants?
At the entrance to the Auschwitz-Birkenau death camp, we actually met a group of Poles. They actually live right here. They said that they live a normal life, although they're living really next to a place where this actually happened. But it was very important for them to come and support the Jewish nation, support the Jewish people, explain, of course, that they don't have any identification with what happened here with the ideas of the Nazis and the Poles that assisted. And that is at least a small presentation of support that we saw here. And it is important to mention that although we're here, we see lots of Jewish children here. Out of the 10,100 youths that are here today, only 6,500 are Jewish. And the idea is that the idea of the March of the Living is presenting the story, telling the story of the Holocaust, not only to Jews, because it is important, as we mentioned, the education ministers, that the story and explaining and fighting anti-Semitism reaches also the students around Europe and not only the Jews.
Well, thank you for joining us, Yoni.
Shalom, Natasha.
The parents of the Israeli-American teenager accused of making dozens of bomb threats to Jewish community centers abroad are now speaking out and are asking forgiveness on behalf of their son. Both parents made moving appeals outside of a courthouse near Tel Aviv. Since the identity of their 18-year-old is still being withheld here in Israel, their full faces aren't being shown to protect his identity.
I appeal to the world on his behalf for forgiveness, for he does not know what he has done. This tumor has caused a state of some type of mental dysfunction that he is not aware of what he's doing. My son does not hate anyone.
שאני מאוד מצטער על כל מה שקרה. לא היה פה שנאה ולא היה פה שום דבר. יש פה סך הכל ילד עם מחלה, שבית המשפט כרגע מתנער מהבעיה הקוגניטיבית שיש לו. נכון לעכשיו, ראיתי אותו לפני יומיים, ואני ראיתי שהמצב שלו החמיר. ראיתי שהאף הימני שלו נופל, הגבות שלו מתנפחות, והוא מתחיל למלמל עם הרבה אפתיות. הוא כולו אפתיות. אז בבקשה, תנסו להבין שיש פה בעיה קוגניטיבית, ואני מבקש מכל אחד בעולם שיש לו חמלה, שיבוא ויעזור לנו.
The suspect's defense attorney, who the parents are trying to replace with a public defender, told reporters her client has a high IQ but the emotional intelligence of a 5-year-old. So far, he's reportedly failed to express any sorrow or regret for his actions. Now, we'll turn our attention to the latest legal charges mounting against a teenager, including several bombshell allegations being revealed for the very first time. Charges including extortion with menace are being added to the Israeli indictment that's being filed today. The suspect is accused of trying to blackmail a Republican U.S. senator after being enraged by the politician's condemnations about the hoax calls. When demands he retract them were ignored, the teen allegedly had drugs sent to the senator's home and threatened to publish photos showing possession of illegal drugs. The Israelis now say the teen made more than 2,000 threatening calls to Jewish institutions in Israel and worldwide. This contrasts with the U.S. indictments that 200 or so facilities were targeted. The U.S. is charging the teen with 31 separate counts, including the felony threats and cyber stalking. Federal officials are said to be unhappy with Israel for reportedly resisting their efforts to extradite the dual citizen. Meanwhile, another shocking allegation has emerged. More than $500,000 worth of Bitcoin payments were discovered in the teenager's internet account. Some of the money was allegedly paid by American students for the suspect to target their school so their exams would have to be postponed. The first round of the French presidential election saw the emergence of Marine Le Pen as one of the two finalists for the final runoff vote slated to take place on May 7th. This new political reality is making many in the Jewish community very worried. The far-right leader of the National Front Party captured 21.7% of the vote. Even though she's distanced herself from her father and party founder Jean Le Pen's open anti-Semitism and Holocaust revisionism, many see her as a candidate of hate. She wants to ban the wearing of kippah, Jewish head coverings for men in public, and is also demanding French Jews relinquish their dual nationalities with Israel. Le Pen claims these sacrifices are necessary so similar limitations can be imposed on Muslims. Just a few weeks ago, she said France bore no responsibility for its wartime collaboration with the Nazis to deport Jews to their deaths in concentration camps. Leaders of French Jewry are now calling for widespread support of the other candidate, Emmanuel Macron. The centrist independent candidate took 23.8% of yesterday's vote. The 39-year-old's garnered popularity by vowing tough action against radical Islam while promising law-abiding Muslims that they have nothing to fear. He takes a very hard line against Israeli settlements, but French Jews might be willing to overlook that in efforts to keep Le Pen from taking control of their nation in less than 2 weeks. Joining me today in the studio to discuss the latest development in the French election is Naftali Ben-Simon, a former journalist at the Israel Broadcasting Company and a candidate in the upcoming Likud primaries. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's my pleasure, Natasha, to be here.
So let's begin. What would it mean for French-Israeli relations if Marine Le Pen were to win?
Well, that's the nightmare of all the scenario that we can even think about it. The chances are not so good to her. Even she is a candidate and she's also in the second round. But for everyone who is dealing with the French politics is talking about, for sure, with a huge gap, that Emmanuel Macron will be the next president of France after yesterday.
Now, do you believe the National Front has changed since Marine Le Pen took control of the party from her father, who was a clear anti-Semite and Holocaust denier, as we all know?
No, she changed, and the party changed, and they try very hard to be kind of mainstream, especially for the young and the rural areas in France. But we have to understand it changed, but in the core of this party, we still see the same ideology that against foreigners, against Muslims, and she was asked lately in a press conference, what about the kippah in the street if you will be a president? And she says she will ban also the kippah. So it's the same ideology. She tried to make up with different roots or something like that. But in the bottom line, she is representing people who ask themselves, where is my France? Where is my culture? Where is my language? Give me back my France. And those people are coming from the rural area, and they are seeing today a different France that they used to see.
Now let's talk about Emmanuel Macron and how his presidency could have an impact on Israeli-French relations specifically.
Well, he's a brilliant guy, young, handsome, and he was here already in Israel as the Minister of Economy. 2 years ago, he was a minister in Holland government. He knows Israel. He admires the Israeli economy, the entrepreneurs, the Israeli high tech. So in many cases, he say, and I heard him about Israel, that we should be more flexible, like the Israel economy, Israel entrepreneurs, Israel initiatives. This is something that he doesn't see in France, and he would like to see it like it is in Israel. So in my opinion, if Emmanuel Macron, and probably he will be the next president of France, the relationship between Israel and France will be stronger, and if not, will be the same like today.
Well, that's the hope. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Now, here's an eye-opening story for you. A landmark telegram has just been discovered that proves the Armenian Genocide took place by documenting the killing of up to 1.5 million Armenians by the Ottoman Turks. Now, here's the crazy part. The document was found right here in Israel. A Turkish-born historian found a long-lost telegram in an archive at the Armenian Patriarchate in Jerusalem. He says this smoking gun provides irrefutable first-hand proof the Ottoman Empire deliberately killed Armenians in the premeditated 1915 campaign and then tried to cover it up. The telegram was the first request from a high-level Turkish official for details about the mass killings from the field in eastern Turkey. The document was actually used to convict the official during military tribunals in 1919 to 1920, but Turkey's long denied those hearings ever took place. Ankara admits there were some massacres, but refutes it was a genocide. The Turks say they were acting in self-defense against a Russian-inspired uprising. It's believed that surviving Armenians shipped the telegram and other court papers outside of the country in 1922 to preserve the historical record. The collection was eventually brought to the Armenian quarter in Jerusalem's Old City sometime in the 1930s and then forgotten until now. Now get ready for this emotional video. Two sisters have just won the Inspired by Israel contest with their poetic video entry explaining why they immigrated to the Jewish state. The pair came with their mother and two brothers after the death of their father in New Jersey. 12th grade high school student Batsheva Shachanovitz is heard narrating words written by her sister Sivan Felder. The first prize winners were selected by the public in the Israel Video Network contest and were awarded $8,000. Let's listen to their story, but I have to warn you, it's so poignant that you'd better get out some tissues.
"5 years ago, my family made Aliyah. When people ask me why we uprooted our entire life and came to live in Israel, when they ask me why we traveled halfway across the world to come live in a country where we barely speak the language, when they ask me why we choose to live in a place so scarred and flawed and messy instead of somewhere easy or simple, how do I explain? How do I explain that Israel is my home and that home is never simple? But this home is the single promise of a million fractured voices bound together by a shared dream and sheer willpower. This is a home built on the stubborn backs of survivors who swore that their children would never feel alone or afraid. Not so long ago, these mountains were moved by young men and women who refused to take no for an answer, even when the rest of the world said it's impossible. How do I explain that this place is my home? These people are my family. And it doesn't matter who I am or where I come from. When I come here, they will always take me in. When I look at my country, I see her cracks and her flaws, but her scars are merely a reminder of the wars she has fought to be here. In the chaos of a world that has forgotten its humanity, she stands as a reminder of the power of hope. Here, I will always be free to be who I am, to love who I want, to say what I think. And that's why, when it's my turn, I will proudly stand and do whatever it takes to protect this home. I will be the unbreakable link between dreams and reality, so that my children will always know that no matter where they might wander or what they might become, they will always have a place to call their own.
The Hebrew word of the day is brought to you by the University of Haifa, Hebrew Summer Ulpan, open to everyone.
And now for our Hebrew word of the day. Right now, the French people have a big decision to make regarding who will be their next president. So today's word is לבחור, meaning to choose or to vote. In our daily life, we're often confronted with hard bechirot or choices, from having to לבחור between chocolate and vanilla, soup or salad, or dogs or cats. The truth, though, is that sometimes it can be hard to live with the bechira or choice that you make. Just remember to keep your head up, because every day brings with it new opportunities to לבחור. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight will be partly cloudy with a low of 55 or 13 degrees Celsius. Tomorrow you can expect a slight rise in temperatures and an expected high of 74 or 23 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.65 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at ILTV.tv. I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for watching.